Three county officials stepped out of a van at the mountain studio. A cease operation order pressed against the windshield. The padlock snapped shut on the soundproofed door. 14 artists just lost access to the masters that made them millions.
Finally, peace and quiet. No more thumping bass rattling decent people's windows.
We're just serving the order, ma'am. But I'll note there were no decibel readings on file.
20 miles away, country singer Lila Hayes sifted through a stack of bills and found a certified letter that froze her blood.
30 days. I am going to lose my home because some HOA lady doesn't like music.
She typed into her phone, "Thanks to my HOA, my royalties are frozen, and I am losing my home. Number Justice for Artists." Within 3 hours, the tweet had 4 million views. National news vans were parked at the HOA gate by sunset.
This is a private community. I'll have every one of you arrested for trespassing.
What happens when an HOA shuts down a recording studio and doesn't realize 14 of its own residents are platinum-selling artists? That's exactly what happened next. But before the padlock, before the foreclosure tweet, Ryan Davies was a Grammy-winning producer, running a private studio on 47 acres of mountain forest.
Lila, that take was magic. One more, and we'll have a platinum hit.
A mile away, Sandra Whitmore, chair of the HOA's Quiet Community Committee, stared at the distant studio through binoculars.
That bass is rattling my wine glasses. I'll file a complaint every day until they do something.
Ryan received a county warning letter. No decibel measurements, just a formal nuisance complaint.
This is ridiculous. I've recorded Grammy winners in here, and not a peep escaped.
He drove to the HOA gate to speak with Sandra directly, hoping to clear up the misunderstanding.
You think rules don't apply to you, Mr. Davies? I'll have that studio shut down if it's the last thing I do.
Your complaints are baseless. My studio is soundproofed by the best in the business.
But Sandra kept filing. 37 complaints in 2 months. Each one pushed the county closer to a cease operation order. Deputy Miller's cruiser rounded the mountain curve and the studio came into view. Beside him, Officer Chen read the cease operation order one more time.
This is a mistake. I've had 0 verified violations. You can't just shut me down.
The order's issued, Mr. Davies. You are done. Pack up your gear before we seize it.
Deputy Miller shifted uncomfortably. He'd served dozens of orders, but this one felt like a slow-motion train wreck.
We're just following the county ordinance, sir. But you have the right to appeal within 10 days.
Appeal, while my artists can't work and their deadlines burn.
The county official taped the cease operation notice to the soundproofed door. Sandra watched from her Range Rover, a thin smile on her face.
Finally. No more thumping. No more noise. The only sound I want to hear is silence.
Ryan stood frozen as the order dried in the mountain air. His studio, his legacy, silenced by a woman who'd never stepped foot inside. But this was only the beginning. What Sandra didn't know was that inside that studio were masters linked to 14 artists who lived in her own HOA. Ryan called Amara King, the toughest entertainment attorney in Colorado, before the county van left his driveway.
They padlocked the studio, Amara. Every master recording for 14 artists is trapped inside.
That's a chain of custody disaster. The RIAA won't release Q3 royalties without verified access to those masters.
At her HOA home, country star Lila Hayes read the news on her phone and felt her chest tighten.
My mortgage is due in 3 weeks. If royalties freeze, the bank takes the house.
Rapper Darius Cross and film composer Elena Vasquez faced the same nightmare. Their contracts all hinged on one studio. Ryan met Amara face-to-face, but her legal assessment was grim.
We'll fight the cease order, but it's a slow battle. The RIAA freeze could last months, maybe longer.
The padlock meant 14 mortgages, 14 careers, and $42 million were in limbo. Ryan looked at that locked door and realized Sandra had just declared war on her own neighbors. The RIAA notices landed in 14 mailboxes inside Ridgeview Estates. Each envelope contained the same devastating language: distribution frozen.
My quarterly check was supposed to be $210,000. Without it, I can't make August's payment.
Lila spread the bills across her kitchen table and did the math. Within 60 days, she would default.
Ryan, the RIAA just froze everything. If I can't access the masters, the bank forecloses.
I know, Lila. We're working on an appeal, but the county moved faster than we expected.
Across the neighborhood, other artists faced the same brutal arithmetic. Tour advances evaporated, film contracts breached, careers unraveled. The total freeze amounted to $42 million. 14 artists were now trapped by a padlock and a woman who craved silence.
This is my fault. I should have fought harder when the complaints started.
Ryan stared at his phone, Lila's panicked voice still ringing in his ears, and felt the weight of 14 livelihoods pressing down. He had no legal strategy yet. Only a mounting certainty that the HOA had accidentally declared war on its own residents. The artists gathered at Ryan's cabin overlooking the padlocked studio. Lila, Darius, Elena, all faces of a crisis no one saw coming.
We're caught in a nightmare. The RIAA says no one touches the masters, and the padlock says no one enters. We can't win.
I'm not giving up. There's a legal path, we just haven't found it yet. But I need you all to hold on.
Darius Cross slammed his fist on the table. He had a 40-city tour depending on the advance that just disappeared. Elena Vasquez sat silently, calculating the breach of contract lawsuit that would end her career if the score wasn't delivered.
Ryan, if there's a way, you need to find it fast. My kids are asking why we're packing boxes.
That same evening, Sandra Whitmore watched the early news coverage from inside her mansion. She saw the artists' faces on screen and scoffed.
So, a few musicians are upset. Noise violators always play the victim. This will blow over.
But across the HOA, a board member named Carl Hayes, Leela's uncle, started making calls. Something was very wrong. The Quiet Community Committee had just detonated a bomb under 14 families, and the fallout was only beginning. The notice of default arrived by certified mail. 30 days to pay the full arrears, or the house goes to auction.
The bank isn't bluffing. We missed the deadline because of an HOA squabble.
She handed the letter to her husband. They read it together in the living room, while their 2 children watched from the stairs.
They're taking the house, Mark, because the chair of our own HOA hates music.
Lila stepped outside and called Ryan, her voice cracking on every word.
Ryan, it's real. The bank sent a notice of default. We have 30 days, and we can't pay.
Sit tight. I am driving to Amara's office now. We'll find a way to stop this.
An hour later, Ryan stood across from Amara King in her Denver office. The legal clock was ticking louder than any drum track.
The courts are too slow. We need to force the HOA's hand publicly. A press conference, an interview, something that can't be ignored.
Then we go public. Let the world see what Sandra did to her own neighbors.
Leela sat on the edge of her sofa, the default notice in one hand, her phone in the other. She typed without hesitating. She posted, "Thanks to my HOA, my royalties are frozen and I am losing my home. Number, Justice for Artists." Retweets climbed past 50,000 in the first hour. Every major music blog picked it up. The story was alive. Sandra Whitmore's phone buzzed with an alert. She saw the tweet, then the comments, and the color drained from her face.
This is slander. They can't blame the HOA for their own financial mismanagement.
In the HOA boardroom, a secretary set down a laptop. The tweet was already on national news. Board member Carl Hayes slammed his palm on the table. We're a national laughingstock. Get Sandra on the phone now. The vote was immediate. An emergency session demanded Sandra's explanation by morning. News vans lined the HOA gate. Reporters shouted questions at the guards, and helicopters circled. The quiet community was quiet no more. Sandra had demanded silence. Instead, she had brought the loudest noise of all, the entire world watching. The HOA board met in emergency session, 10 faces around a mahogany table, all of them staring at Sandra.
Every complaint I filed was legitimate. The studio was a nuisance. This is a coordinated attack against me.
But the evidence was against her. No decibel readings, no verified violations. Only a mountain of frozen royalties. An older board member, uncle to one of the artists, stood up. My niece is losing her home. Because of you, the board demanded a fix by week's end. But Sandra had no strategy, only denial across the mountain. Ryan faced a different crowd, cameras and reporters from every major network.
$42 million. That's what the RIAA froze, because this studio was padlocked without cause.
Beside him, Lila held up the foreclosure notice. Darius Cross detailed his canceled tour. The news went national. National headlines screamed the scandal. Ho ho, padlocks studio. Freezes $42 million in artist royalties. Sandra's quest for silence had backfired. Now the whole world heard the noise she created. While Sandra and the HOA board tore each other apart, Amara King was buried in old state statutes. She hadn't slept in 2 days.
1992, 98, 2015, 2019, Cultural Heritage Recording Site Designation Act.
She read the statute 3 times. It protected historic studios from local interference, and Ryan's studio had been designated under it.
Ryan, it's Amara. I found something. Your studio was designated a Cultural Heritage Recording Site in 2019. The cease order is illegal.
What? I remember they gave me a plaque years ago. I thought it was just honorary.
Number. Section 3 grants immunity from municipal noise ordinances. Sandra's entire case was built on a power she didn't have.
Ryan looked at the plaque on his studio wall, a brass rectangle he'd ignored for years, and felt the first surge of real hope.
I am filing an emergency motion to vacate the cease order. We'll have a hearing within 48 hours.
Do it. Let the judge see what Sandra did. Let her explain how she shut down a state-protected heritage site.
They had a nuclear option. Now they just needed a judge willing to pull the trigger. Amara's emergency motion hit the county clerk at 8:45 a.m. By noon, the HOA's attorney was calling it a desperate publicity stunt. The judge set the hearing for next morning. Courtroom 4B would decide whether 14 artists lost their homes over an unverified noise complaint. The gallery filled early. Artists, reporters, HOA residents. Ryan sat beside Amara, a photo of the heritage plaque on the table.
This studio is a cultural heritage recording site under Colorado law. The cease order is void from the start.
She walked the judge through the Grammy winners, the architectural proof, the state's own 2019 designation. The statute was unambiguous.
It's not heritage. It's a garage where they play loud music. The complaints prove the nuisance.
What complaints? No decibel readings. Not one verified violation. Only the word of a woman who's never stepped inside.
The judge removed her glasses and stared directly at Sandra. She held up the plaque photograph. I need to review the statute. I'll issue a ruling by Friday. The gavel cracked down, and the silence in the room was deafening. Ryan Davies walked to the stand. The courtroom was silent, every eye tracking the producer who'd made platinum records in a soundproofed mountain room.
That studio is where Leela Hayes wrote her Grammy-winning album, where 14 artists poured everything into their music. It's not a garage, it's hallowed ground.
The HOA's attorney stood. He argued the heritage law was written for museums, not active studios. and that Sandra's complaints proved a public nuisance.
The statute says, working studio. No decibel reading, no verified violation. You can't pretend this was about noise when the evidence says it was about personal vendetta.
The judge stared at the statute booklet, then at Sandra. She removed her glasses again, a gesture of deliberation that made the room hold its breath. The gavel came down. This court is adjourned until Friday. The order remains in effect. Both sides will have my ruling then. Outside the courtroom, journalists swarmed. Lila grabbed Ryan's arm, her voice barely a whisper.
The bank won't wait. If she rules against us, the auction is in 20 days.
She won't. The law is clear. But if it's not, 14 families go down with me.
The wait began. 48 hours until a judge's pen decided the difference between a legacy and a wreckage. Inside the HOA boardroom, a secret vote. Offer Ryan a deal. Withdraw objections if the media pressure stops. The call came that evening. On the phone, a board member offered a truce. Cease the publicity, and we'll cease our fight.
You want me to silence the artists while they're losing their homes? Not one of them will be quiet.
Ryan hung up and walked toward the cameras. His decision was already made.
I will not settle. I will not back down until every artist is paid and every padlock is removed.
Behind him, Leela held up the foreclosure notice again. Amara stood with a stack of legal briefs. The HOA's private maneuver leaked within hours. Public outrage doubled.
My family is one of 14. We won't be silenced for a secret deal.
The hashtag number Justice for Artists trended again, this time with a new edge. No settlement, no surrender. The judge's ruling was now less than 36 hours away. The HOA had tried to buy silence, but the noise was louder than ever. Leela Hayes found the final foreclosure notice taped to her front door. Auction date, 21 days, no more appeals.
Ryan, the bank's taking the house. 3 weeks. My kids will have nowhere to go.
Hold on, Lila. The ruling comes tomorrow. I swear I'll get you that money.
His phone buzzed again. Darius Cross. His record label had dropped him, citing the frozen advance. Elena Vasquez. A breach of contract lawsuit.
14 artists. 14 lives collapsing. And it all comes down to one judge's signature.
The artists gathered at the cabin that evening, not to strategize, to plead.
Take the settlement, Ryan. Save my family. Save all of us. We can't wait for a maybe.
If I settle, they'll do this again. To another studio, another artist. We have to win the law.
He looked at the plaque on the wall, the heritage designation, and then at the faces of the people who trusted him.
Tomorrow, the judge decides, but I've already decided. We don't surrender.
Officer Chen's dashboard cam footage had flagged the pattern. 47 complaints, 0 decibel readings. The state AG investigator listed them on a screen like evidence.
I told dispatch the same thing every time. No noise, no violation. She just filed and filed.
At her mansion, Sandra Whitmore opened the door to find an age subpoena. She smiled as if it were junk mail.
Every complaint was legitimate. I heard the noise myself night after night. They're trying to silence the community's voice.
But the investigator had sworn statements from 2 former HOA employees who'd been instructed to never verify complaints. The letter arrived at the HOA's legal address. Notice of investigation into criminal misuse of public nuisance complaints. A board member dropped the letter on the table. If Sandra is charged, we could be too. We enabled her. The news broke that afternoon. State AG opens criminal investigation into HOA over frivolous noise complaints. The media surrounded the gate.
Not a minute too soon. Sandra just handed us the rope to hang her own case.
Between the AG's probe and the judge's pending ruling, the HOA's quiet little mountain was about to learn the meaning of legal noise. The HOA board convened an emergency session. Same mahogany table, same 10 faces. But now the head chair was empty.
You can't do this. I am the one who kept this community quiet for 12 years.
A board member unfolded the recall motion. The vote was called by raised hands. 9 hands went up. Unanimous. Sandra Whitmore was no longer the quiet community chair. Sandra knocked her chair over as she stormed out, her heels echoing down the hallway. The new board president picked up the phone and dialed Ryan Davies.
You are withdrawing all objections and supporting the motion to vacate? That's a start.
By evening, the HOA issued a formal statement. We apologize to Mr. Davies and all affected artists. We will cooperate fully and support the immediate end of the cease order. The statement hit the news wires. But in her mansion, Sandra Whitmore was drafting her own response. The board's apology was a corner turned, but the padlock still hung on the studio door. The judge's ruling was the only key. Amara King filed an ethics complaint against the original county judge, attaching the 47 complaint records with 0 decibel readings. Within 6 hours, the judge recused himself from the case, citing an appearance of impropriety. The order still stood, but the man who signed it was gone. Judge Patricia Reyes was assigned. She'd built a reputation for cutting through noise, legal noise, and reading statutes literally.
She'll honor the law. The heritage designation isn't decorative, it's a shield.
Finally, someone who reads the law instead of the HOA's complaints.
The State Judicial Ethics Board opened a formal investigation into the original judge, citing the rubber-stamped, unverified complaints as potential misconduct.
The old judge is under investigation. The HOA board apologized. Sandra's recalled. We might actually win this.
Judge Reyes set an expedited ruling schedule. She'd issue her decision on the vacate motion within 24 hours. No more delays. For the first time, Ryan allowed a sliver of hope to take root. But he'd learned not to trust the quiet. The padlock was still on the door. The ruling was the only key. And tomorrow, the judge would turn it. Judge Patricia Reyes issued a single paragraph. The cease operation order is vacated, effective immediately. The Cultural Heritage Recording Site designation precludes local interference. The vacate order was posted on the studio door before noon. The cease order still hung beside it, now a dead letter. Ryan pulled the key from his pocket, the same one he'd kept polished for weeks, and unlocked the padlock.
It's open. Get inside and fire up the boards.
Lila Hayes burst through first, guitar case in hand. Behind her, Darius Cross and Elena Vasquez, all of them rushing to their masters. The mixing board lit up. Hard drives spun. One by one, they verified the chain of custody for every master recording.
Masters verified. Send it to the RIAA. Now.
Ryan hit send. The verification forms went to the RIAA for all 14 artists. $42 million now depended on one email.
The padlock is gone. The freeze could lift any hour, but until the money hits their accounts, I am not celebrating.
The studio was open, the masters were safe, but the quiet on Sandra's side of the mountain now carried the weight of what was coming. The RIAA processed the verifications in 48 hours. One by one, 14 emails landed. Your Q3 distribution has been released.
$210,000. The bank says paid in full. We're not losing the house.
Her husband and kids met her on the porch. The moving boxes were replaced with a welcome home banner.
You did this, Ryan. You held the line when we wanted to crumble.
At the studio, the 14 artists gathered, holding phones that displayed balances that meant survival. Darius Cross posted his tour dates again. Elena Vasquez watched the studio drop its lawsuit.
42 million returned to the people who made it. Not one home lost. Not one career ended.
The freeze was over. The padlock was a memory. But Ryan knew the HOA still had to answer for what they'd done. Sandra Whitmore was still in her mansion, her recall known. The quiet community she'd protected was about to get very loud. The royalties were safe. Now, it was time for the HOA to pay their own bill. The State Judicial Ethics Board censured the original county judge for rubber stamping unverified complaints. He resigned the next morning. The final penalty order read, "The Ridgeview Estates HOA shall pay $1.8 million for filing false public nuisance complaints and violating state law." Inside the boardroom, members stared at the penalty fine and the notice that their insurance premiums had tripled.
This ruling sets a precedent. Every HOA in the state now knows that weaponizing complaints has a real price.
Sandra Whitmore, now a private citizen without an HOA title, was served with Ryan's civil suit for defamation.
I had the power. Now, I am the one being sued. This wasn't supposed to happen.
News channels aired the penalty story on a loop. The HOA's shaming was now as public as the scandal itself.
1.8 million isn't enough for what they put us through, but it means no one else will suffer this way.
The HOA board issued a final memo. All noise complaint policies are permanently suspended. The quiet community had become a place where music could live. The legal chapter closed. But Ryan already had plans to make sure the silence never returned.
This amphitheater is the last word. Sandra wanted silence. She'll get the loudest mountain in the country.
Crews carved terraces. Below the studio, shielded by the same heritage law that had toppled the cease order, the court ordered that on concert nights, the HOA's private streets would become public. The gates were forced open. On opening night, the 14 artists took the stage together, a resurrected family.
This is for every artist who was told they're too loud.
We didn't just unlock a door. We made sure no HOA ever locks another.
Fans filled the HOA's manicured streets for the first time. The quiet community heard music until midnight. Sandra watched from behind a curtain. The sound of her own defeat, louder than any bass line. The heritage plaque had never been just an honor. It was a shield. The mountain that once enforced silence now belonged to music. Forever.
Music won. Our voices won. And no HOA will ever silence an artist again.
The 14 artists linked arms and bowed as the crowd roared. Behind the curtain, Sandra Whitmore watched. The cheers were just noise to her now.
They're louder than ever. I wanted silence and gave them a microphone.
Lila, you almost lost your home. Tonight you own this mountain.
As the last chords faded, crowds streamed through the HOA's open gates. The studio lights remained on long after the music stopped. Sandra drew the curtains. She'd lost more than her chair. She'd lost her quiet. The heritage plaque was never just metal. It was a promise that art would outlast the silence. On the mountain where noise was once a crime, music became the law, and Ryan Davies made sure it would stay that way.